Happy Super Bowl Sunday, everybody. We've got some breaking news here on Verts. My name is Harrison Graham. The New York Jets have reportedly informed veteran quarterback Aaron Rodgers that they will be moving on this offseason. Jay Glazer of Fox Sports with the scoop. As earlier today, Jordan Schultz had said that all signs point to the Jets moving on, and Glazer kind of took it to another notch, saying, yeah, they've already told him that they are going to go ahead and move on here. So we'll see what that looks like. Does that mean they're going to trade him? Does that mean they're going to cut him? We'll have to wait and see. Just to explore the financials of this, if he gets cut pre-June 1, the Jets would carry a $49 million dead cap hit this year, which his cap number currently is only $23.5 million. If they designate him as a post-June 1 cut, they would basically owe him $14 million, or they would be on the hook for $14 million in dead money the next 3 years, then $7 million the year after that, so it would space it out. If they were to try to trade him, it would basically be the same as, it would be the same as cutting him. So I bet they post June 1 designate him, but who knows? First year head coach GM, they might just eat the $49 million against the cap, kind of acknowledge, okay, this isn't a 1 year rebuild anyway. And quite frankly, I think this is probably the right move. Now, $23 million against the cap for him to play this year wouldn't have been egregious, but I just think Aaron Rodgers is one of those characters that I'm not going to say he's going to sink a franchise, but if you're Aaron Glenn and you're trying to kind of leave your footprint on this franchise and set the tone, do you want 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers, who kind of likes things a certain way, bringing it down potentially? I just don't know if that's worth the risk. I almost wonder if they just eat the $49 million this year, sign some kind of a bridge quarterback for 2025. Maybe they draft someone. Who knows? Maybe they trade up and get a Shedeur Sanders or a Cam Ward, but they're going to move on here, and I can't really fault the move. I thought he played better down the stretch, but you're not a contender with 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers at this point. It's probably best to just rip the Band-Aid off. They do have Tyrod Taylor under contract. Maybe they start him and just roll with him for a season and kind of build up the rest of the roster and just eat that $49 million this year. I wouldn't be shocked at all if they did that. They do have Jordan Travis, the Florida State quarterback who they drafted late last year, I think in the 5th round. So that could be an option to get him some reps this year. Then maybe you just draft the quarterback in 2026. So we'll see what they do at the quarterback position, but clearly they're going to move on here. The question is, who goes after Rodgers if he does keep playing? And his actions would suggest that he probably will play another year. We'll see where that is. Does a team like Tennessee, who we'll talk about in a bit, do they trade out of one and bring in Aaron Rodgers? Could the Raiders be in on Aaron Rodgers? A report just came in as well that Devontae Adams, this probably means he'll be gone as well. The Jets will likely cut him. So could Rodgers and Devontae team up somewhere else for one more season? That could be a possibility. It just kind of depends where these chips are going to fall in terms of the quarterback carousel. So I have no idea where Rodgers will play next year. If I had to guess, golly, I really don't know. I mean, one wild card would be like, would the Colts bring him in if they just wanted to pivot from Anthony Richardson? But that feels risky in terms of Shane Steichen and Chris Ballard bringing in 41-year-old Aaron Rodgers when you're entering this year on the hot seat to try and save yourself. I don't know. Giants, I don't see that as a very likely possibility. So we'll kind of explore some teams on a future episode and if new reporting comes out. But the Jets are going to pivot and move on here. And I can't really argue with the decision, because when you have new front office or new GM, new head coach, it probably just makes sense to rip the Band-Aid off here. And the 2 years of Aaron Rodgers in New York, could it have gone much worse? I mean, 4 plays in his first year, he rips his Achilles, and then this year, it's just a disaster. They're firing coaches. They're firing their GM. It's just a mess. And, sometimes things don't work. It just is what it is. Okay, coming up in just a moment, more NFL trade rumors. Some big-time NFL insiders like Adam Schefter and Ian Rapoport are dropping reports. Typical Super Bowl Sunday leading up to the big game. You get a lot of the offseason buzz worked into the news cycle as the offseason really starts tomorrow for all 32 teams. It's been underway for several teams. So we'll dive into those. A couple of big names to keep an eye on in addition to Aaron Rodgers. But subscribe and join us. We will have a post-game episode tonight once the game is over. Super Bowl 59 between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. It'll be our last post-game reaction of the season. So subscribe, turn on notifications. We'll have a reaction show out just minutes after the game ends. And hey, if you want to, get those score predictions going down in the comment section below. Let us know who you guys think will win. But if you want to support our content every single day and join us tonight for a post-game show, hit that sub button. All right, how about Micah Parsons? Ian Rapoport reporting that Dallas has had, quote, internal discussions, close quote, about trading their star edge rusher. You kind of wondered if this would be a possibility this offseason for Dallas, considering they've paid CeeDee Lamb and Dak Prescott, just in terms of roster flexibility, because Micah will likely top Nick Bosa and become the highest paid defensive player in the league, at least temporarily, until Myles Garrett gets a new deal. And Dallas might look at this and say, well, if we pay Micah $35 million a year, Dak, Micah, CD, we already know Jerry can be frugal in free agency. That'll be the only move they make. They'll have a big three in terms of contracts, and that'll be it. And you wonder if Jerry might look at this and say, if I can get 2 firsts, a second, and have that extra money freed up, do I just load up in the draft? It wouldn't shock me at all. Also, it's been well documented that Micah Parsons was pro Mike McCarthy. They obviously did not keep him. They're going with Brian Schottenheimer. He's entering the 5th-year option, so he's going to need a new deal. He's not going to play this year out on the 5th-year option, I don't think. So you either pay him or you trade him. I think it's pretty simple. So I'll say this. If he enters the fray along with Myles Garrett, the amount of teams that'll be interested in those two players, there's also some buzz that maybe Max Crosby could get dealt, although I bet Vegas ends up keeping him at least for one more year. But Micah and Myles Garrett, I bet between those two teams, two players, 2/3 of the league will be interested. Superstar pass rushers in their prime. Micah still arguably entering his prime. Myles at 29, firmly in the middle of his prime right now. I think Micah's 25, 26, so he's got a lot of good years left. And teams always want superstar pass rushers. So, I don't think they would trade Micah to Washington. They were a prominent team I mentioned for Myles Garrett because they have a cap space and a quarterback on a rookie contract that they like, so they can make sense. Could the Bears jump in on Micah Parsons? What AFC teams could be in? Like, would the Patriots splurge here? I don't think so. I think they'd rather just keep building the team. I'm trying to think who else in the AFC would maybe jump in. Could Buffalo or Baltimore get in on the action to try and, get over the hump as they're trying to chase down Kansas City? We'll see. You could bet this, though. If Micah Parsons is being shopped, which I think it's a little early to say he's being shopped. I think Dallas is just considering their options for this offseason. He will command a lot. He is a very, very good player and very versatile. He could play some off-ball linebacker too. So we'll see what Dallas does. Hunch tells me they'll keep him, but I would not be shocked if they traded him. One player that is going to get moved on from is Deebo Samuel. He's got 1 year left on his deal. And Deebo apparently in exit meetings asked the Niners to trade him this offseason. And I don't think it's one of those, this isn't one of those bitter situations. It seems kind of mutual. And let's face it, the second they drafted Ricky Pearsall and paid Brandon Ayuk, this was kind of inevitable. They've got Juwan Jennings as well in San Francisco. Deebo, who's, a bit diminished as a player, the amount of money he makes, keeping him on the roster just wasn't going to be that realistic beyond this year after they signed Ayuk. Now, Brandon's recovering from that injury, obviously, but still, Deebo Samuel's cap hit right now for next year is just under, that's the wrong player. It's only $15 million, but in terms of where he is on their pecking order, he's their 3rd or 4th guy at this point. And they drafted Pearsall in the 1st round. Now, the issue is if they cut him or trade him pre-June 1, the dead cap hit is $31 million. So it actually doubles. So I'm not sure how the Niners are going to finagle this. Maybe Deebo agrees to some kind of a restructure, then they trade him. We'll have to wait and see how that goes. But Those two parties are going to part ways. You kind of thought this could happen last year once they paid Deebo or Brandon Ayuk, but I think the Niners wanted to give it one more roll with everybody healthy, and obviously it just didn't work out. They had a bunch of injuries, and Brock didn't play as well, and it is what it is. But now Deebo finds himself on the outside looking in. I think teams would be interested, but I think it depends on what the salary structure is. He's a very unique player. He's not a great route runner. He's not a true number one. You have to have a game plan for him. So, a team like New England could make sense because they just need weapons for Drake May. That wouldn't shock me. Could Miami be interested if the price is right? Obviously, Mike McDaniel coached him in San Francisco before he took the Dolphins job. Teams will be interested. I do just wonder, though, like ultimately, does San Francisco just have to post June 1 cut him? Because if they do that, they, let's see, it's only a $10 million dead cap hit. So if they designate him as a post June 1 cut, $10 million, not really that big of a deal for San Francisco. So keep an eye on Deebo as his future in San Francisco appears to be over. And man, kind of a end of an era. He was on that original 49ers team with Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy's obviously gone now, and they still haven't won a Super Bowl. So we'll see if they do with kind of the rest of that core there. Okay, and then lastly, before we sign off here, and there's other stories out there too that we'll get to tomorrow and throughout the week as more juice and stories drop. The Tennessee Titans, according to Ian Rapoport, are, quote, open to everything at the top of the draft, including trading down. And I'll say this about Tennessee and really just any team in general. If you're trading or drafting number one and you don't love a quarterback there, you should trade down. Because even in a weak QB draft, you're still going to find teams that will trade you a good amount for that pick. The New York Giants picking third, they are desperate. You can always find a desperate team. Joe Shane, Brian Dable are in the fourth year on their jobs in New York. The owner's getting impatient. They have to get a quarterback. So you could trade back to 3, potentially still get the other quarterback, depending on what Cleveland does at 2, or guarantee yourselves either Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter if a quarterback does go number 2. That kind of feels like the ideal scenario because then you have all your options still open. You could just take Travis Hunter. You could take Abdul Carter. You could trade down again on draft night if you want to do that. So if Tennessee doesn't just love one of these quarterbacks, first-year GM, second-year head coach, you can still be patient here. Now, Brian Callahan was not hired by this GM, so he may not have as long of a leash, but I do think that Tennessee is in a good position where if they love a quarterback, take one. If not, trade down. Raiders at 6 could be a team that's interested. There's a report that the Saints at 9 could move up. So there will be teams interested in that top selection to take Sanders or Ward. The early reporting was that Tennessee likes Cam Ward, but maybe they don't like him enough to take him number 1 overall. And if they just want to load up on assets and move down a few slots and still get a premier player, that's something they could do. Mike Borgonzi, their GM, came over from Kansas City. He was there when they drafted Mahomes, and they've built a good roster through the draft. He probably has a pretty good feel for this scouting, and he's not going to rush it because these things take time. So, again, to me, you take a quarterback if you're absolutely sure. If you're not, take the best player available or trade back. And both those opportunities will certainly be available. So there you have it. News, rumors, trade buzz. It's all circulating around the National Football League here on Super Bowl Sunday. Be sure to subscribe and join us for our post-game reaction show tonight. Get your score predictions in the comments, and we will see you guys soon here on 4 Verts.